What's the worst thing you opened your door to? I opened my dorm room door, and a hand grabbed my leg. I looked down, and there was a girl on the floor, barefoot, covered in blood, missing her shirt. Please help me. She pulled herself inside. I slammed the door shut and locked it. She crawled under my desk, shaking. I grabbed an ice pack from the freezer and pressed it into her hand. That's when I realized I knew her. She was in one of my classes. Always quiet. Always sat 2 rows up. I asked what happened. Her lips barely moved. The sorority. I was rushing. I'm the only one who got away. The others, they're still out there. I woke my roommate. He stared at her for maybe half a second, then yanked on his sneakers and grabbed a flashlight. No hesitation. We threw blankets into the car and bundled her in the back seat. She pointed at the woods behind campus. They made us fight, she said. It was a test. The road ended at a clearing where 2 other girls sat by a log, knees pulled to their chests. We wrapped them in blankets. Be careful, one of them whispered. There's a coyote loose out here. We heard rustling. I followed it with the flashlight. That's when I saw her. Another girl, flat on the ground, body jerking. Foam leaked from her mouth. A coyote stood at her feet, gnawing at her shoe. I shouted and ran. The coyote's eyes flashed silver in the light before it slipped back into the trees. I rolled her on her side. Her chest heaved like she was drowning on dry land. My roommate crashed through behind me, dropped the first aid kit. We did what we could. Eventually, her breathing slowed. Then a scream tore through the clearing. We spun around. More figures stood in the tree line. Dozens of them, masks, hoodies, all white faces staring back at us. They didn't move closer. They just watched. We carried the girl to the car and shoved everyone inside. My roommate floored it. Branches scraped the doors as we tore out of the woods. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 3 texts. Unknown numbers. They all said the same thing. Do not come to the woods. It is a setup. The girl from my class leaned forward in the passenger seat. Her voice was low, steady. Don't go to the hospital. Don't go to the police. They're the ones who pick the girls. The car was silent except for the engine. Then, from the back, a knock. Not on the window. Not on the seat. From inside the trunk. We froze. My roommate kept his eyes on the road. The girls in the back pressed against each other. I reached for the trunk release out of instinct. Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Her eyes met mine. Don't. Another knock. Louder this time. Then a voice, small and calm, like it had been waiting there all along. Thanks for the ride, Pledge. The voice in the trunk laughed, soft and wrong, like whoever was back there thought this whole thing was funny. My roommate's foot slammed down harder on the gas, and the car jumped forward, tires squealing as we took the next turn too fast. The girl from my class grabbed my wrist so hard her nails dug into my skin, and she leaned close enough that I could smell the blood and dirt on her. Don't stop, she whispered. No matter what you hear. The speedometer hit 60 on the narrow campus road, and my roommate's knuckles went white on the steering wheel as we flew past the last dorm buildings toward the main road. Another laugh came from the trunk, then 3 more knocks, slow and patient, like they had all the time in the world. We saw the bright lights of a gas station up ahead, one of those 24-hour places with cameras on every corner, and my roommate yanked the wheel hard to the right without even slowing down. The tires screamed as we slid into the parking lot, and he pulled right up under the brightest light by the door, keeping the engine running while I twisted around to check on the girl who'd had the seizure. She was slumped against the window, but her eyes were open now, blinking slow like she couldn't focus on anything. I grabbed a water bottle from the floor and helped her take small sips, holding her head steady, while the other 2 girls pressed themselves into the opposite corner of the back seat, as far from the trunk as they could get. My phone started buzzing like crazy in my pocket, and when I pulled it out, there were 5 new texts from numbers I didn't recognize. The first one said, "We know you're at the Shell station," and my blood went cold. The next one had our exact coordinates down to the decimal point. The third said, "Turn around now." The fourth had a picture of our car from above, like someone was watching us right now with a drone or something. The last one just said, "You're making this worse." Every text had a timestamp that matched exactly when we'd turned or changed speed, which meant someone was tracking us in real time, probably through our phones or the car's GPS or both. My roommate saw my face and grabbed the phone, read the messages, then immediately pulled back onto the road heading for the interstate. "Campus is a bad idea," he said, and the girl from my class nodded hard. "There's a truck stop about 10 miles up," my roommate continued. "Big place, lots of people." The girl leaned forward between the seats, and I finally asked her name, even though we'd been in the same class for 2 months. "Hannah," she said, voice rough like she'd been screaming. "And whatever happens, we can't open that trunk." She kept looking back at it like she expected something to burst out any second. The highway opened up ahead of us, and my roommate pushed the car up to 75, weaving between the few other cars out this late. Hannah started talking fast, like she needed to get it all out before she lost her nerve. They gave us drinks at the house, pink ones, said it was tradition. Then everything got fuzzy, and next thing I knew, we were in the woods. Her hands were shaking as she wiped dried blood off her arms. They had us in a circle, said we had to fight, said only the strong ones would make it into the sorority. She stopped to catch her breath, and I could see tears cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. Girls started falling down, passing out, having seizures like Eliza back there. She pointed at the girl I'd been helping with water. But they just watched. All those people in masks. They just stood there and watched. My roommate's jaw was clenched, so tight I could see the muscle jumping. "We should call campus security," he said, but Hannah practically screamed, "No!" and grabbed his shoulder. "They drove the vans!" "The security guys. They're the ones who brought us there." Her voice cracked, and she started crying for real now. 3 white vans, campus security logos on the side. They picked us up at the house and drove us out there. We all went quiet except for the sound of the engine and the wind rushing past. My roommate took the exit for the truck stop and pulled into the huge parking lot full of semis and RVs. "Okay," he said. "Okay, we need supplies, medical stuff, and phones they can't track." We parked between 2 big trucks where we'd be harder to spot and started digging through our pockets. I had $43, my roommate had 60-something, and Hannah found a 20 in her pocket that was wet with something dark. "I'll go," my roommate said, already opening his door. "There's a pharmacy counter inside. I'll get bandages and those prepaid phones." He looked at me. "Keep them safe. Keep watching." He jogged toward the bright lights of the truck stop, and I locked the doors behind him, then turned to help the girls. They were huddled together in the back, Hannah holding Eliza, who was more awake now but still confused. The other 2 girls whose names I still didn't know pressed against them. That's when I saw the white SUV pull into the lot 3 spaces over. The windows were tinted, but I could see the engine was still running from the exhaust in the cold air, and right there on the windshield was a university parking sticker. My stomach dropped, and I tried to text my roommate, but he was already inside. The SUV just sat there, nobody getting out, nobody moving, just waiting. 10 minutes passed like hours before my roommate came running back with a plastic bag, and as soon as he got in, I pointed at the SUV. He looked at it for maybe 2 seconds, then threw the car in reverse. "We're moving," he said, and drove us around to the back of the lot where there was a concrete barrier for a loading dock. He backed right up against it so the trunk was pressed tight against the concrete. "Nothing's getting out now," he said, but we could still hear shifting sounds from back there, like something heavy sliding around. I pulled out my phone and started recording everything, getting video of the girls' injuries, their torn clothes, the blood and dirt, making them say the date and time and what happened. Hannah was getting stronger, more focused, and she started listing names. Ashley Shawn was there, she's sorority president, and Morgan something, the tall one with red hair, and that girl Jamie from student government. She kept going, naming maybe a dozen people while I recorded, and when she was done, I took pictures of everything I could see, the bruises already forming on their arms, the weird UV stamp on Hannah's wrist that showed up under my phone's flashlight, even the glitter mixed in the mud on their feet. My roommate looked at the pictures on my phone and said, we needed to get somewhere safer than this truck stop. He knew a place about 20 miles out where his cousin worked nights at this old diner off the highway. We got everyone back in the car and started driving again while I kept checking the mirrors for that white SUV. The girls were quiet in the back, except for small sounds when we hit bumps in the road. Hannah kept her hand pressed against her side, and I could see dark stains spreading through her fingers. The diner appeared after what felt like forever. Just this small building with yellow lights and maybe 3 cars in the lot. My roommate's cousin met us at the back door and didn't ask questions when she saw the girls. She took us straight to this little office behind the kitchen that had a door with a real lock and no windows at all. The girls sat on the floor while I grabbed paper towels from the bathroom to clean them up better. My phone started ringing from a blocked number, and when I answered, this woman's voice asked if the pledges had been collected yet. She used these Greek letter names like she was reading from some list. I hung up fast and turned off location services on my phone. My roommate did the same with his phone and told the girls to power theirs off completely. We needed to check if anyone was talking about what happened, so I opened Twitter and searched for our campus name. Nothing showed up about the woods or missing girls or anything weird at all. Same with Instagram and Facebook and even the local news sites. We'd heard at least 4 or 5 police sirens earlier when we were leaving campus, but there was nothing online about any of it. The silence felt wrong, like someone was making sure nothing got out. My roommate started making a list of what we needed to do next, while I kept taking pictures and videos of everything. Hannah helped get water for the other girls and kept checking on the one who'd had the seizure. That girl was starting to wake up more and could tell us her name was Eliza, but she couldn't remember much else. We heard those 3 knocks from the trunk again. Same pattern as before. Knock, 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 then nothing. My roommate grabbed his phone to record the sound, but we both knew we weren't opening that trunk no matter what. Hannah said we should skip campus police completely and go straight to county authorities in the morning. She knew they were different departments and might not be connected to whatever this was. We all agreed that made more sense than trying to handle this ourselves or trusting anyone from the university. Hannah started telling us more while I recorded her on my phone. She said they'd all been at the sorority house for this special rush event when they got handed these pink drinks. Everything went fuzzy after that, until she woke up in the woods with people yelling at them to fight each other. She remembered someone saying they had to face the consequences if they didn't fight hard enough. The other girls nodded when she said this, and Eliza managed to whisper that she remembered the pink drinks too. I noticed something on Hannah's wrist when she moved her hand and asked to look closer. Under all the dirt and blood, there was this faint mark that showed up when I used my phone's flashlight. It looked like those UV stamps clubs use, except this one had Greek letters in it. I took pictures from different angles trying to get it to show up clear. My roommate pulled out his laptop and started looking up those phone numbers that had texted us earlier. He's good with computer stuff and figured out they were all internet phone numbers, the kind you can get free online. The weird part was, they'd all been connected to campus Wi-Fi when the messages were sent. Someone inside the university was definitely part of this, and they had access to track us somehow. While he worked on that, I remembered seeing something earlier on Instagram and went back to check. This girl from Greek Row had posted a story maybe 2 hours ago that showed people in white masks standing around a big fire. I recognized the clearing in the background as the same woods we'd just left. The story disappeared right as I found it, but I managed to screen record the last few seconds. You could see the masks clearly and hear voices chanting something I couldn't make out. The timestamp showed it was posted while we were still in those woods helping the girls. My roommate's cousin knocked on the door and brought us some sandwiches and first aid supplies. She said she'd keep watch out front and let us know if anyone suspicious showed up. Hannah was getting stronger and could sit up on her own now. She kept listing names of people she'd seen at the house before everything went bad. Eliza tried to help, but her memory was still messed up from whatever they gave her. The other 2 girls were twins, and they just held each other without saying much. We decided to stay put until morning when the county offices opened. My roommate would handle calling lawyers and victim services while I organized all our evidence. Hannah would help keep everyone calm and watch for any medical problems with Eliza. Every few minutes we'd hear those knocks from the trunk, but we just ignored them and focused on what we needed to do. The clock on the wall showed it was almost 4 in the morning, and we had maybe 3 hours before we could get real help. My roommate pulled up the location history on my phone while I sat next to him on the floor. The trunk had knocked 3 times at 3:47 a.m. when we turned left onto Highway 9. 3 more knocks at 3:52 when we took the exit ramp. Another set at 4:01 when we pulled into the diner parking lot. Whatever was in there knew every single turn we made the exact second we made it. I grabbed my laptop and started searching Eliza's symptoms while my roommate kept working on his phone. The medical sites all said the same thing about foam from the mouth and full body shaking. Benzos mixed with alcohol could cause exactly what we saw in the woods. The girls had been drugged before they even got to the clearing. Hannah sat up straighter when she heard us talking about it. She said the 3 knocks kept happening all night in the sorority house. Knock, knock, knock on bedroom doors during rush week. The pledges had to answer with the same pattern, or they got punished. It was how they knew who belonged and who didn't. My roommate showed me his phone screen with his eyes wide. Hannah suddenly grabbed his arm and told him to stop. She remembered hearing 2 girls talking about a password when they thought she was passed out. Something about roses and midnight. My roommate typed it into the sorority website and a hidden page loaded. There it was at the top in red letters. Midnight proving scheduled for tonight at 2 a.m. Below, that was a list of names with check marks next to some and X marks next to others. Hannah's name had an X. So did Eliza's. The other girls from the woods all had X marks too. My roommate took screenshots of everything while I kept scrolling. There were instructions about bringing the pledges to the gathering point and making sure they drank the special punch first. It said the coyote would be released at exactly 2:15 a.m. to test their survival instincts. My hands shook as I read more details about fighting requirements and elimination rounds. Hannah pointed at one section that mentioned consequence protocols for anyone who tried to run. My roommate switched to his banking app and started searching Venmo transactions. He found dozens of payments between sorority members from the past week. Every single one had a coyote emoji in the description. The amounts were huge, too. $500 here, $1,000 there. One payment for $3,000 said security deposit with a coyote and a lock emoji. He screenshotted everything and saved it to 3 different cloud accounts. My email notification went off, and I almost ignored it until I saw the subject line. Campus parking violation from earlier tonight. The timestamp said 11:45 p.m. when we were in the middle of saving these girls from the woods. The violation claimed my car was illegally parked outside the library during that exact time. Someone was building fake evidence against us already. I showed it to my roommate, and he got quiet for a second. Then he told me about something that happened 2 years ago with a fraternity. A pledge died during Hell Week, but the whole thing got buried when alumni donors threatened to pull millions in funding. The kids' parents got a settlement and signed papers to never talk about it. The fraternity was back to normal within a semester like nothing happened. He knew because his older brother was there when it went down. The pattern was clear now. They protected Greek life no matter what happened to students. My phone started ringing from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was smooth and professional. Drew Livingston from Student Wellness Services. He said they'd received a concerning report about my mental state tonight, asked if I was having any delusions or paranoid thoughts, wanted to know my exact location so they could send help. His questions didn't sound like he cared about my health at all. They sounded like he was fishing for information. I told him I was fine and hung up fast. Hannah's face went white when I said his name. She knew him from somewhere but couldn't remember where. We decided we needed to move soon before they found us at the diner. My roommate went to get the car while I helped the girls stand up. That's when I saw it through the office window. A white SUV pulling into the parking lot with its lights off. The same one from the truck stop earlier with the university sticker. They'd found us somehow. We went out the back door and got in the car fast. My roommate drove without headlights until we reached the main road. The SUV appeared in our mirror within minutes. We took 3 random turns trying to lose them, but they stayed right behind us. My roommate ran a yellow light and cut through a gas station to get some distance. I remembered my psych professor mentioning a women's shelter that helped assault victims off the record. Found their number in my phone and called while we drove. The woman who answered listened to me explain about the girls and what happened. She said they could meet us at a shopping center parking lot in 20 minutes. No questions asked and no reports filed. The SUV was still somewhere behind us, but we couldn't see it anymore. Hannah held Eliza's hand in the back seat, while the twins stayed pressed against each other. We had evidence now, and a safe place for the girls to go, but I knew this was just the beginning. My roommate pulled out his laptop and started typing fast while I kept watch through the office window. He suddenly stopped and looked at me with wide eyes, saying the diner's Wi-Fi was logging everything, and we needed to wipe our tracks right now. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he cleared browser histories and cache files from both our phones and his laptop. I watched him work through proxy servers and private browsers I didn't even know existed. We were learning fast how to think like people who didn't want to be found. He grabbed my phone and started uploading all our videos and screenshots to different cloud services, using random passwords he wrote on a napkin, then tore into tiny pieces. I helped by creating new email accounts on his laptop and sending encrypted copies of everything to ourselves and 3 backup addresses we'd never used before. The files took forever to upload on the slow diner connection, but we couldn't risk losing this evidence if something happened to us. My phone buzzed with a DM notification from someone named Alicia Velez, saying she knew what happened tonight and arrangements could be made for everyone's benefit. The message was polite, but the threat underneath was clear as day. I showed it to my roommate, who took a screenshot before the message disappeared 2 seconds later. Eliza shifted in her chair and mumbled something about lights in the woods. Hannah leaned closer to hear her better. Eliza's eyes stayed closed, but she kept talking about how someone warned them not to run toward the lights, because that's where they would be waiting. Her words came out jumbled, but the meaning was clear enough. This whole thing had been a trap from the start. The twins nodded like they remembered the same warning. I grabbed some paper towels from the bathroom and started cleaning the mud off their feet so they'd be more comfortable. That's when I saw it mixed in with the dirt. Tiny pieces of glitter, the same sparkly confetti they used to decorate the Greek row lawns for parties and rush events. I took close-up photos with my phone's flash on, making sure to capture how the glitter was pressed deep into the mud, not just sitting on top. My roommate was scrolling through something on his laptop that made his face go pale. He turned the screen toward me, showing emergency scanner reports from earlier tonight. The language didn't sound like normal police or medical calls at all. They kept mentioning a containment team being dispatched to the woods area behind campus. The timestamps matched exactly when we were there rescuing the girls. One report even used military-style grid coordinates instead of regular addresses. We sat there for a minute trying to figure out what to do next. My roommate wanted to call the state police right away, but I wasn't sure. Hannah spoke up from her blanket, her voice stronger now, insisting we needed to document everything first, because timing would matter for keeping everyone safe. She'd seen what happened to girls who reported too early without enough proof. They got buried by the system. Eliza and the twins were too tired to add much, but they nodded in agreement. Part of me kept thinking about going back to the woods to look for more evidence or see if other girls were still out there. The guilt sat heavy in my stomach, knowing we might have left people behind. But looking at these 3 survivors barely holding it together, we knew their immediate safety had to come first. My roommate called the shelter number again and arranged to meet their advocate at a grocery store parking lot 20 minutes away. We helped the girls to the car, checking carefully that the white SUV wasn't anywhere in sight. The drive felt like it took forever, even though my roommate drove normally to avoid attracting attention. Every set of headlights in the mirror made my heart race. The grocery store lot was mostly empty except for a few overnight workers' cars. A woman in a gray sedan flashed her lights twice, our agreed signal. Lila Rasmussen looked exactly like her voice sounded on the phone, calm and prepared. She had medical supplies in her back seat and a van with tinted windows parked next to her. 2 other women got out to help, both wearing matching purple shirts with the shelter logo. They moved fast but gentle, wrapping the girls in fresh blankets and checking their vitals with practiced efficiency. Lila pulled me aside while they worked, pressing a business card into my hand with a number written on the back. She said to call if we needed anything and assured us the girls would get medical care from doctors who wouldn't report to campus authorities. Her team had dealt with situations like this before, though she admitted this was more extreme than usual. Hannah squeezed my hand before getting in the van, whispering thank you over and over. Eliza was already half asleep in the back seat. The twins held on to each other as they climbed in. Watching them drive away felt like a weight lifting off my chest, but also like we were losing our only witnesses to what really happened tonight. My phone dinged with an email notification before we even left the parking lot. Campus Parking Services had sent me a violation notice for illegal parking from 3 hours ago, right when we were in the woods saving those girls. The attached photo showed my car supposedly parked in a faculty spot outside the administration building, somewhere I'd never been. The timestamp had been doctored, but not very well if you looked close. They were already building a case against us, creating false evidence to discredit anything we might say. My roommate saw my face and grabbed my phone to look. He took screenshots of the email and the obviously edited photo, adding them to our growing collection of evidence that something much bigger was happening here. The next morning, Alicia Velez messaged me again, asking to meet at the coffee shop off campus near the bookstore. My roommate wanted to come, but I went alone, sitting in the back corner where I could see both exits. She walked in wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, ordered a black coffee, and sat down across from me without saying anything at first. Then she leaned forward and told me she was the voice in the trunk. My whole body went cold hearing that. She explained it was a test to see if we'd follow orders, if we'd open it when told not to. The sorority had planted her there with a recording device to document our obedience level. She looked sick talking about it, said the whole thing had gone way too far this year. The hazing used to be minor stuff like making pledges clean the house or memorize Greek history. Now they were drugging girls and making them fight in the woods while alumni watched and placed bets. She reached into her bag and slid a small enamel pin across the table, purple with gold edges. She said any alumni wearing this would help us, but warned that some very powerful people were involved. People whose kids went to this school. Board members, state politicians, major donors who treated Rush Week like their personal entertainment. She asked me not to use her name anywhere, but promised she'd keep feeding us information when she could. Walking back to my dorm afterward, someone bumped hard into my shoulder near the student union. Drew Livingston from campus security grabbed my arm to steady me, apologizing for not watching where he was going. Then he mentioned casually that he heard something weird about a car trunk last night. My stomach dropped, because only someone with inside knowledge would know that detail. He smiled and said, campus security was always available if I needed to talk about anything troubling me. The way he said it felt more like a threat than an offer of help. I pulled away and kept walking, but could feel him watching me all the way to my dorm. Later that afternoon, I was taking trash to the dumpster when the janitor who worked our floor pulled me aside. He'd been cleaning these buildings for 20 years and knew when something wasn't right. He whispered that maintenance found dozens of white masks in the dumpster behind Greek Row this morning. Campus security had already taken most of them, but he'd saved one in his supply closet if I wanted it. I waited until the hallway was empty, then followed him to the maintenance room where he handed me a white plastic mask wrapped in a garbage bag. The inside still smelled like sweat and perfume. I stuffed it in my backpack and thanked him, knowing this was real physical evidence linking Greek Row to what happened in the woods. Back in my room, an anonymous email popped up on my laptop with an attachment labeled "Tonight's Roster." The document listed sorority members by their Greek nicknames, alongside specific roles like observer, enforcer, and collector. I started cross-referencing the nicknames with social media profiles and recognized multiple student government leaders, including the vice president and 2 senators. Screenshots of their Instagram stories from last night showed them at the sorority house earlier, then nothing after midnight when everything went down. The evidence was piling up, but so was the pressure. At 2 in the morning, my RA knocked loud enough to wake the whole floor, saying someone complained about noise from our room. We'd been dead asleep, so obviously there was no noise complaint. She stood in our doorway looking uncomfortable, mentioning that campus security wanted to have a chat with us about our well-being. She kept glancing down the hall like someone was watching, then whispered that we should be careful before walking away. My roommate and I knew our phones were probably compromised by now, so the next day he bought 2 prepaid phones with cash from a gas station off campus. We backed up all our evidence to multiple cloud accounts with different passwords, then factory reset our regular phones. We set up automated uploads from the burner phones, so if someone took them, the evidence would already be saved online. The paranoia was exhausting, but necessary, given how many people seemed to be tracking us. That evening, Lila texted the new phone saying Hannah had recorded a detailed statement about everything that happened. Eliza was stable and also willing to share her story with authorities when the time was right. The other girls were still too scared to speak, but at least we had 2 witnesses ready to go on record. She said both girls consented to having their statements shared with law enforcement once we found a safe channel that wouldn't get buried by the university. My roommate spent hours researching proper reporting protocols and found a Title IX organization at the state level that handled cases when campus authorities might be compromised. I called them from the burner phone and explained our situation without giving names yet. The woman on the phone got very serious when I mentioned coordinated hazing, drugging, and institutional cover-up. She walked me through the proper documentation process and said they could open an investigation that bypassed campus channels entirely. She gave me a direct email to send our evidence to when we were ready. We also sent an anonymous tip to the state newspaper with just enough information to get their attention. Within hours, Holden Tyson, their investigative reporter, responded saying he was very interested in our story. We used an encrypted email service to send him a file with some of the photos and videos, enough to prove this was real without exposing the victims' identities yet. He said he'd start digging into the university's Greek system and donor connections immediately. The next morning, Alicia texted my burner phone about a big donor event happening tomorrow night, where the sorority president would be speaking to alumni. She said she'd wear a silver scarf around her neck if it was safe for us to come and gather more evidence without getting caught. My roommate found the event listing online and saw they needed extra catering staff for the fancy dinner at the Student Center ballroom. We both signed up through the campus job board, using our real names since we had nothing to hide about needing work. The catering manager seemed happy to have extra hands and told us to show up at 4 to help set up tables and learn the serving routine. When we got there the next day, we spent the first hour mapping out every exit door and noting where all the security cameras were positioned while we arranged chairs and folded napkins. The kitchen had a back door that led straight to the parking lot, and there were 2 emergency exits on opposite sides of the ballroom that weren't alarmed. My roommate took photos of the room layout on his phone while pretending to check the time. Around 6, the donors started arriving in expensive suits and dresses, while we stood against the wall in our black server uniforms, holding trays of tiny appetizers. Alicia walked in, wearing a dark blue dress with a silver scarf wrapped loosely around her shoulders, and made eye contact with me for just a second before turning to greet someone. She moved through the crowd, talking to different groups, while occasionally adjusting her scarf to make sure we could see it clearly. During a break between courses, she brushed past me near the kitchen doors and slipped something into my pocket without stopping or looking at me. I went to the bathroom and found a key card with a sticky note that said, "Audio booth 2nd floor," in her handwriting. My roommate covered for me while I slipped upstairs and found the small room full of sound equipment that controlled the microphones for the stage. The backstage mic feed was already live, even though the speeches wouldn't start for another hour, so I could hear everything being said behind the curtain. I pulled out both burner phones and started recording on multiple devices, while also using my regular phone as backup. The sorority president was talking to someone about damage control and keeping the donors calm after what she called recent incidents on campus. I texted my roommate to let him know I was in position, and he replied that Drew had just walked into the event wearing a suit instead of his usual uniform. We started texting back and forth to track Drew's location as he moved through the room following my roommate from table to table. Drew would stand near whatever section my roommate was serving and just watch him while pretending to look at his phone. My roommate led him on a slow circle around the room to keep him distracted while I kept recording everything from the booth. That's when I heard the smoking gun conversation we'd been hoping for through the backstage mic. The sorority president was talking to a major donor about how the tests went too far this year, and they needed to implement containment protocols to prevent any more problems. The donor asked if the girls were handled, and she assured him that campus security was managing the situation. They discussed specific dollar amounts for what they called a discretionary fund to deal with any legal issues that might come up. I made sure all 3 phones were capturing every word while my hands shook from the adrenaline of finally getting real proof. After 20 minutes, I slipped back downstairs and rejoined the serving staff like nothing had happened. Drew spotted me immediately and started following me instead of my roommate through the dinner service. When I went to the kitchen to pick up dessert plates, he cornered me near the dishwasher where no other servers could see us. He got close enough that I could smell his cologne and asked if I was enjoying my evening. I stepped back and loudly asked him for his full name and badge number while other students were walking past with dirty dishes. Several servers turned to look at us, and Drew's face went red as he realized people were watching. He mumbled something about just being friendly and walked away quickly toward the main ballroom. My roommate and I met in the bathroom during the next break and uploaded all the audio files to 3 different places at once. We sent them to Holden at the newspaper, the Title IX organization we'd contacted before, and the FBI tip line using the encrypted email service. There was no taking any of this back now since the evidence was out of our hands and in the system. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila saying she was working with County Victim Services to get Hannah and Eliza real medical help at a hospital 2 counties over where the university couldn't interfere. Both girls were finally getting proper exams and documentation of their injuries that would hold up in court. The Q&A portion of the event started, and Alicia stood up from her table to approach the microphone in the center aisle. She asked the sorority president about midnight rituals and whether there were any hazing traditions that alumni should know about. The president's smile froze on her face, and several Greek leadership members at the head table started whispering frantically to each other. Alicia followed up by asking about the selection process for new members and whether it involved any physical challenges. The donors at nearby tables started shifting in their seats and looking at each other with uncomfortable expressions. The president gave vague answers about tradition and sisterhood, but you could see sweat forming on her forehead under the lights. More people started murmuring, and the energy in the room shifted from celebration to tension. The university president suddenly stood up and took the microphone, saying there would be an important announcement. He cleared his throat twice before stating that all Greek activities were suspended, effective immediately pending an external review of student safety protocols. The room erupted with shocked voices as donors demanded explanations and Greek members stared at each other in disbelief. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but at least it was a start toward stopping them. The next morning, Lila called to say Hannah and Eliza were at a hospital 2 counties over getting full medical exams and talking to real victim advocates who weren't connected to the university. The doctors found bruises in patterns that matched forced fighting, and drug tests showed traces of benzos mixed with other stuff that explained the seizures. Hannah was getting stronger by the hour and told the advocates everything she remembered about which sorority officers were there and what they made the girls do. Eliza's memory was coming back too, and she started naming specific people who'd watched from behind the masks. My phone rang constantly with blocked numbers, but I didn't answer any of them. Drew showed up at my dorm room that afternoon wearing regular clothes instead of his uniform and asked if we could talk about what happened at the event. I told him I had nothing to say without a lawyer present and shut the door in his face. 3 other students from my floor saw the whole thing, and one of them recorded it on her phone. The next day, campus security called my roommate and me to the dean's office for what they called an urgent meeting about our conduct. We walked in to find 5 administrators sitting around a conference table with folders full of papers about us. They said we'd violated university policy by using our positions at the catering event to record private conversations without consent. The conduct officer read off a list of supposed violations, including misuse of university resources and creating a hostile environment for Greek organizations. My roommate pulled out his phone and started recording while telling them this sounded like retaliation for reporting crimes. That's when Harper walked through the door, wearing a sharp suit and carrying a briefcase full of federal whistleblower protection documents. She'd been waiting in the hallway for the perfect moment to make her entrance. The administrators' faces went pale when she introduced herself as our attorney and started citing specific laws they were breaking by trying to intimidate witnesses. She told them any further contact with us needed to go through her office and handed out her business cards to everyone at the table. We walked out of that meeting without signing anything or agreeing to any of their demands. Harper met with Alicia that same afternoon at a coffee shop downtown, where Alicia handed over 3 years of internal emails and documents she'd been collecting. The papers showed how the sorority systematically planned these hazing rituals and covered them up with help from campus officials. Alicia wanted whistleblower protection in exchange for testifying about everything she'd witnessed over the years. Harper started building a federal case while also preparing civil suits against the university for failing to protect students. 2 days later, Drew got put on administrative leave after 7 different complaints surfaced about him trying to intimidate witnesses and interfere with the investigation. The sheriff's department opened an internal investigation, but everyone knew they were just buying time to figure out damage control. The university sent out campus-wide emails about their zero-tolerance policy for hazing that they obviously hadn't been enforcing for years. The sorority chapter faced immediate suspension, and federal investigators started showing up to interview members and examine their financial records. Parents started calling demanding answers, and several major donors pulled their funding from Greek life programs. The campus felt different with Greek Row basically shut down and members walking around looking nervous all the time. My roommate and I kept going to class, but people stared at us in the hallways like we were either heroes or snitches depending on their perspective. Other survivors started reaching out through encrypted messages, saying they wanted to share their stories too, but were scared of retaliation. We set up a secure communication network using the contacts Lila had given us, so people could report safely without exposing themselves. 2 weeks passed, and I was sitting in my psychology class when my phone buzzed with a text from Hannah saying she was doing better and ready to fight back publicly. She'd been working with trauma counselors and felt strong enough to go on record with everything that happened. Eliza was healing too, and they'd found 3 other girls from previous years who were willing to testify about similar experiences. Holden, from the state newspaper, had been investigating non-stop and uncovered financial records showing the sorority's discretionary fund was used to pay off victims. He found receipts for medical bills that were quietly covered and legal settlements that never became public. The story was scheduled to run on the front page that weekend, with our evidence as the centerpiece. Harper filed the civil suits on Friday afternoon to coordinate with the newspaper story for maximum impact. The article hit Saturday morning with the headline, "Systemic Abuse Hidden by University Officials," and included photos of the masks we'd found and screenshots of the recorded conversations. By noon, it was trending on social media, and national news outlets started picking it up. The FBI announced that evening they were taking over the investigation from local authorities due to potential federal crimes. Agents showed up on campus Monday morning with warrants and started seizing documents from Greek houses and administrative offices. 3 weeks after that night in the woods, I got a call from Hannah saying 5 sorority leaders had been arrested on federal charges. The chapter was permanently disbanded by their national organization, and the university faced millions in potential lawsuits. Hannah's voice was steady and clear when she told me she was going to be okay because we'd stood up to them and won. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for sticking with me through all the questioning and wondering. It's been a blast exploring these little moments together. Until next time, like the video, it helps more than you think.